Can you explain, if I want a money that is scarce, why I should value gold as opposed to Bitcoin?
Well, first of all, I don't think Bitcoin is money, because I don't think it qualifies as money, and it's not really used as money. It's used to speculate with. People buy it because they think the price is going to go up and they're going to get rich. People don't own money to get rich. They earn money from their work, their labor, and they save money, but it's not a lottery ticket to get rich. But which was the characteristic? Was it portability, you said?
Scarcity.
Scarcity. Yeah, I mean, gold is very scarce in nature. Gold is not made by man. Gold was created during the Big Bang, and so the gold that's here is the gold that's here. And you could look at historically, the supply of gold grows quite slowly over time, maybe 1 or 2% per year, which is similar to the growth of the population of the world. So gold is scarce, and that's one of the reasons that it's expensive, is because it's scarce. But it's also scarce and valuable. See, scarcity in and of itself doesn't make something very valuable. There has to be a lot of demand. And so the reason that gold is expensive is not just because it's scarce, but because it's scarce and it has properties that are extremely valuable and desirable, and that are not easily replicated, with other commodities. And so a lot of people want gold, but they can't have it because there's not that much of it. And so the price is high. And so it's one of the reasons that it works well as money, because you can have a lot of value concentrated in a very, small quantity. You don't really have to worry about all of a sudden some huge inflation coming. You're not going to have a massive discovery of gold that's going to be so enormous that you're going to diminish the value of the gold that already exists.
Mr. Breedlove, I want a currency that is scarce and valuable. Why should I appreciate Bitcoin?
Yeah, again, so value is just, it's going to be whatever people prefer, right? Whatever people are expressing through action that they want ultimately. So you can't try to say something is valuable. This is my whole hang up with intrinsic value. The value does not inhere in anything. It has to do with how we respond to conditions in the environment, basically. So what are we trying to say here? That basically it's, the word speculative keeps getting used. All human action is speculative, right? We never know if our actions are going to create the outcomes that we desire. But it appears to me that in the game of money, the idea is to hold the money that is the most scarce. And scarcity and rarity are not the same things, right? Rarity, right? The one, I can do the Robert Breedlove original painting. That's a very rare painting, but it just so happens I don't have any artistic skills that are marketable, so there's no market demand for that thing. It means it's not scarce, right? Scarcity exists wherever demand exceeds supply. So even if you've got a supply of one, if there's no demand, there's no scarcity. So money is interesting though, because money lays claim to anything that the market can generate, right? It's the means by which we acquire anything that the market can offer. So basically the money that has the most inflexible supply tends to be the money that best stores purchasing power across time. This is why gold outcompeted all the other monetary metals, because it had the least flexible supply. And this is why I think Bitcoin basically perfects the scarcity of money insofar as it has an absolutely inflexible supply curve. It's the only fixed supply asset human beings have ever created, even for gold, right? If we could flip a switch and make everyone in the world go out and start mining gold today, we could increase the supply much more quickly than the 2% a year that we've done historically. That's not true for Bitcoin. No matter how hard we try to produce Bitcoin, the supply does not change.
Are you saying
that's a step change in money that we've never seen before?
But Robert, you're telling me that none of the other 20,000 Bitcoins have a fixed supply, that Bitcoin is the only currency that has a fixed supply. There are no other cryptos that do that.
That's correct. It's the only one that's credibly decentralized.
No.
And therefore not dependent on the promises of developers or anyone else. So anyone else is launching a crypto that says it has a fixed supply, you're trusting that guy. You're not trusting any guy with Bitcoin.
What about like the forks? What about Bitcoin Cash or Bitcoin Gold? Don't they have the same 21 million cap?
Yeah, here's what happens with a fork. And this is probably one of the more complex areas to understand about Bitcoin is that it's not just a protocol layer. There's also a social layer, right? Same is true for gold or any monetary asset. If there's a fork at the protocol layer and we split into, say, Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash, right? Bitcoin Cash wants to increase block size ostensibly to improve transaction throughput, although I think it was to compromise decentralization. If you wanted a take on that, you could read the Block Size Wars of 2017. When the protocol layer splits, the social layer follows. Everyone that owned Bitcoin gets allocated one Bitcoin Cash. Then they choose to express their own thesis of which protocol they want to follow by buying and selling in the marketplace. And it just
but they
so happens,
both have a fixed supply. That's my only point.
But they don't have a fixed supply because people sell their Bitcoin Cash. Its market cap collapses. It's more vulnerable to a 51% attack. It's still based on the promises of the people that hold it close. It's not decentralized. That's what I'm saying. It doesn't have the credible. So you're saying Bitcoin assurance.
Cash isn't decentralized? Just
no,
Bitcoin?
It is not. There is no decentralized crypto asset other than Bitcoin. It's Bitcoin, not shitcoin.
Yeah, well, I think there are others. I don't think it's the only one. And couldn't somebody, even if there were no other ones, couldn't somebody create another one today? Couldn't somebody launch a crypto that had the same properties as Bitcoin?
Yeah. You can fork the rules of chess, but good luck getting anyone to play with you. Like that's the analogy.
How do you know? Look, you talk about that there's no such thing as intrinsic value. So gold doesn't have any value. It only has the value that we want to ascribe to it. So let's say that that's the case, right? Because people value jewelry, because people value electronics, because they value, all kinds of things, then they need gold, right? Because they want all these things that they need gold for. But for Bitcoin, they don't need it for anything. I agree that people want it because they think they're going to get rich if they own it. Just because you're going to say, okay, Bitcoin's value comes from the fact that people want it. That's true. People want it today. You have no idea whether people will want it in 5 years, in 10 years, let alone 100 years.
That's true for everything.
The people have wanted gold, let's say, for 5,000 years. The odds that they're not going to want it anymore, that all of the characteristics that throughout all of human history, really, we've valued about gold, that we're just going to stop. We're not going to want it at all, versus saying that something that's only been around for 13 years, that can easily be replicated and doesn't have any real value unto itself, that for some reason, people are always going to want Bitcoin, as opposed to something else that could come around that might be better than Bitcoin, that might be faster, that might be cheaper, that might be more secure. Who the hell knows, right? But to put your faith in it and say this is it, right? No one's ever going to stop wanting this. No, nothing's ever going to be better than this. Is a stretch, to say the least.
Yeah, well, I heard you.
I want to stick to this scarcity because this appears scarcity and value. So, Mr. Schiff, I just want to clarify. You're saying it's not that gold has intrinsic value. It's that the historical record and the actual properties that gold has makes it more likely to be money by a very high degree than something like Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is much more likely to be replicated and much less likely to be valued in the future in comparison to gold.
I think gold does have intrinsic value. I'm just saying, if you don't believe in that concept, if you think all the value is subjective and gold is really only has the value because human beings decide that it has value, I said if you're going to take that perspective, and look at it that way, I'm willing to do that. And then you're going to say, yes, Bitcoin has value because some people, not me, right? But some people have decided that they want it. And so because there's a group of people who want it and the supply is limited of that particular token, the price is what it is. $70,000 is what you'd have to pay to acquire a single Bitcoin at the moment, because people want them. But I think the main driver is speculation. In fact, the main buying right now for Bitcoin is coming from ETFs, people who couldn't care less about all the properties that you're talking about because they don't even own the Bitcoin. They own an exchange-traded fund that supposedly has the Bitcoin, and they're buying it because they think the price of this ETF is going to go up. It's got nothing to do with Bitcoin as money, has nothing to do with anything. It's just that people are buying that particular speculative asset in their brokerage accounts instead of some other speculative asset, because for the moment, they think there's upside. I think right now, the upside is that, Trump is going to win, and Trump is going to use taxpayer money to buy Bitcoin. as a
Mr.
payback for the Bitcoin community for supporting his campaign, he's going to then create inflation and use the money to buy up Bitcoin, and that's going to push up the price. And so people want to get ahead of that so they can sell to the U.S. taxpayer who's buying at gunpoint from his government.
Okay, Mr. Breedlove, please address the point that in 100 years, we have very good reason to believe that gold will be scarce and valuable, whereas we have no reason to believe Bitcoin not only either won't be there might be a replication of it, making it not valuable and scarce. Please address that point. And Bitcoin could be replicated along with the concept of intrinsic value.
Okay, so let's try to hopefully put a button in this intrinsic value thing once and for all. I get annoyed hearing this term thrown around all the time. Once again, value is subjective, right? If I'm going to quote the great Mises, he said, value is not intrinsic. It is not in things. It is within us. It is in the way in which man reacts to the conditions of his environment. So I think what most people mean when they say intrinsic value is industrial use value versus monetary exchange value, right? These are the two poles we're going to look at for each asset. And indeed, each asset exhibits some degree of moneyness, right? If you hold it with the intention of trading it in the future rather than consuming it or using it in an investment process, then you're treating that asset as money, whether it's water, jewels, whatever it is. And so the asset that is most widely held with that intention is money by definition. So if I look at gold, gold's market cap is around $15.7 trillion today. Roughly 10% of gold's market cap is attributable to demand for gold as an industrial use metal. Dentistry, computers, all the things we use gold, all the industrial processes we use gold in. Roughly 1.6 trillion of gold's 15.7 trillion market cap are demand for gold as an industrial use asset. The other 90% of gold's market cap is attributable to demand for gold as a monetary asset, right? This is people basically holding it with the intention of using it to preserve purchasing power over time, which is to say, spend it in the future on something else at some point. Okay, so that's gold. Gold's got some industrial use demand, and it has some monetary use demand, roughly 90-10 split. Bitcoin has a market cap of around $1.4 trillion today, and 100% of Bitcoin's market cap is attributable to demand for Bitcoin as a monetary asset because Bitcoin doesn't have any industrial use value. That does not mean Bitcoin doesn't have intrinsic value. Nothing has intrinsic value. Value is subjective, right? As we've quoted Mises earlier. Value does not inhere in things. It inheres within us and how we respond to the conditions of our environment. So Bitcoin has 0% industrial use value, but this is a feature, not a bug. This makes Bitcoin the world's only pure money, the only asset that is 100% monetary use value, or 100% monetary premium, if you want to use that term. And so this argument that's often wielded like a cudgel against Bitcoin, properly understood through the lens of economics, is actually one of its highest compliments. It's like, no, this is the first pure money. We've had approximations of money up until this point, even the great gold, right, which is 90% monetary premium and 10% industrial use value. Even that's not a pure money. It's an impure money. So I think Bitcoin is basically the invention of a digitally pure money. It does not replace gold, as I've said earlier, right? Gold still has its place in physical reality. You know, if we get into that world of no electricity, internet, bullets, well, you're going to need a lot of physical gold. But in a world that has a functional digital ecosystem, I think Bitcoin is the dominant money because it is pure money.
Mr. Schiff, please address strictly.
I'm just going to address the points that he just made. Then you can ask me what you're going to ask me. But look, Bitcoin isn't pure anything, and it's not the only anything. But to correct what the flaw in your argument, so 100% of gold's use is its industrial value. Now, the people who are storing gold today are not using the gold for those reasons, but they're storing it so that somebody else can use it for those reasons in the future. Maybe it's 1,000 years in the future, right? But if it wasn't for gold's use as a metal, as a precious metal, and all of the things that we need gold to do, nobody would want it. The reason it's a store of value is because in 1,000 years, somebody can take that gold and actually do something valuable with it, right? And so all of the demand for gold rests on its industrial uses. None of Bitcoin's value rests on that because it doesn't have any. And you're saying that 100% of Bitcoin's use is for money. I would say that that's a negligible percentage. The number one use case for Bitcoin is speculation. People are buying Bitcoin because they believe it will be $1 million of Bitcoin, $10 million of Bitcoin. They believe that they're going to be broke if they don't have Bitcoin, right? That everybody is going to be, broke except the people who have Bitcoin, because all the world's purchasing power is somehow going to shift to the Bitcoin holders at the expense of everybody who's too dumb like me to buy it. So people are just hoarding their Bitcoin. That's why they want it. They don't want to use it as a medium of exchange, as a unit of account. Nothing's priced in Bitcoin. People aren't really using Bitcoin. Yeah, there's a tiny fraction of people who actually might send some Bitcoin to somebody else to pay for something. But all the transactions with Bitcoin is speculators buying and selling it, day trading it, right? That's what people do with it. They trade it. So it's not being used at all for its monetary purposes. It's almost maybe 1%, 2% is being used potentially for that. And almost all of it is used by speculators who are either hoarding it or trading it.
So if I understand you correctly, the future of gold is to be consumed then? I mean, I would assume that's
all the
basically gold. Okay, well, that's obviously a speculation by you. We don't know what people are going to do with gold in the future.
Well, we know what they've done with it in the past. They've used it.
My question would be this.
When you use gold, it doesn't go away, though, right? That's the beauty of gold. Even if I use the gold, it's still here, right? It can be repurposed. Like all the gold jewelry I showed you can be melted down and used, in a computer, used in a rocket ship. It just because I've worn it as jewelry doesn't change the fact that it's still gold.
So you disagree with the Austrians that money is the asset that is held with the intention of trading in the future. You're saying that doesn't exist for gold.
No. People are doing that, but the reason that gold can be money is because it is a valuable metal that will have use cases in the future. Otherwise, there'd be no point in holding it.
If you enjoyed this clip, click here for the full episode and here for more just like it. Also, like this video to help shine light on the corruption of money and subscribe to stay connected. Thank you.